Hey everyone, it's Silverchair here, and I know I've been quite busy, but here I am back. So let's get started by talking about the strongest woman in history, Susan B. Anthony, fighting for the rights of all women. So let's learn about her from the governance section of the Story of America cards. Susan B. Anthony was an American social reformer and women's rights activist who played a pivotal role in the women's suffrage movement. Born into a Quaker family committed to social equality, she collected anti-slavery petitions at the age of 17. In 1856, she became the New York State agent for the American Anti-Slavery Society. William Henry Channing, the noted Boston clergyman, once described Susan B. Anthony as the Napoleon of women's rights. For more than 50 years, this reform leader and fighter for women's rights took every challenge and usually emerged the victor. Born on a farm in Adams, Massachusetts on February 15, 1820, Susan Brownell Anthony was the second of 8 children in the Quaker family whose activist transition dated back to the American Revolution. After the economic panic of 1839, Anthony helped to support her family by teaching, and this experience became the basis of her lifelong support for women labor organizations. Her first social reform activity, however, was temperance, and it was only after she not allowed to speak at a temperance rally in Albany, New York, because she was a woman, that Anthony joined the women's suffrage movement, 1852. Her work soon took her to the Kansas Prairie, to the Oregon Territory, and a month to jail after she voted in the November election of 1872 to test the argument that women were technically allowed to vote under the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution, that granted citizenship to all persons born or nationalized in the United States. To her annoyance, the judge dismissed the case after fining her $100, which she never paid, saying she would ignore all laws to protect an enslaved woman. Most colleges and professions were also closed to women at the time, and early reformers like Anthony and her colleague Elizabeth Cady Stanton attacked these inquiries with great vigor. They were also angered by the fact that women were paid reduced wages in those fields that were open to them, and by the galling assumption that the legal and political actions could be taken for women without concealing them. In raising their appeals and petitions against these practices, Stanton became the writer and speaker while Anthony used her gifts as an administrator to speak political support, organize conversations, secure speakers, and raise funds. She also edited the first suffrage newspaper, The Revolution, and published the three volumes of the History of Women's Suffrage, which documents our early movement. In 1906, when she was 86 years old, Susan B. Anthony told the last suffrage conference she ever attended that failure is impossible. A few weeks later, on March 13, 1906, she died. By then, women had gained the right to vote in 4 states, and 14 years later, in 1920, the 19th Amendment guaranteed women's suffrage. Susan B. Anthony died at age 86 of heart failure and pneumonia in her home in Rochester, New York, on March 13, 1906. She was buried at Mount Hope Cemetery, Rochester. At her birthday ceremony in Washington, D.C. a few days earlier, Anthony has spoken of those who had worked with her for women's rights. There have been others also just as true as devoted to the cause. I wish I could name everyone. But with such women constructing their lives, failure is impossible. Failure is impossible. Quickly became the watchword for the women's rights movement. Anthony did not live to see the achievement of women's suffrage at the national level, but she still expressed pride in the progress of women's movement had made. At the time of her death, women had achieved suffrage in Wilmington, Utah, Colorado, and Idaho. And several larger states followed soon after. Legal rights for married women had been established in most states, and most professions had at least a few women members. 36,000 women were attending colleges and universities, up from zero a few decades earlier. 2 years before she died, Anthony said, "The world has never witnessed a greater revolution than the sphere of woman during these 50 years." That is for Susan B. Anthony in the Stories of America cards. I hope you liked this, and I'll see you when I make another one. Goodbye.